In 1936, Literary Digest magazine conducted the largest poll in American history, 10 million surveys, and predicted Alf Landon would defeat Franklin Roosevelt by a landslide. Roosevelt won by the largest margin in American electoral history. The problem was not sample size. The problem was that the Literary Digest sample came from phone books and car registration lists, rich people who voted Republican, while the Depression-era electorate was much poorer. Sampling methodology matters more than sample size. Survey research is the most widely used research method in social science. Surveys can collect data from large samples efficiently, covering attitudes, self-reported behaviors, opinions, and demographic characteristics. They can be administered in person, by phone, by mail, or increasingly online. The strengths of surveys include their efficiency, breadth, and ability to reach populations that would be impossible to study by observation. The primary weakness is that survey data depend entirely on participants' willingness and ability to report accurately, which creates vulnerability to social desirability bias and recall errors. Social desirability bias is the tendency of survey respondents to give answers that make them appear in a favorable light rather than reporting their actual attitudes or behaviors. People underreport stigmatized behaviors like drug use, infidelity, and racial prejudice, and overreport socially valued behaviors like voting, charitable giving, and exercising. The effect is strongest for topics with clear social norms and weakest for topics where there is no obvious right answer. Anonymity reduces but does not eliminate social desirability bias, because people can still feel judged by an imagined audience. Random sampling is the methodology that ensures every member of the target population has an equal probability of being selected for the sample. When sampling is random, sample statistics provide unbiased estimates of population parameters. The sample mean approximates the population mean, and sample proportions approximate population proportions. The Literary Digest failure occurred precisely because their sampling was not random. It systematically oversampled wealthy voters. Representative samples look like the population on key characteristics. Biased samples systematically deviate from it. Naturalistic observation involves observing and recording behavior in its natural setting without any intervention or manipulation by the researcher. Jane Goodall's decades of research on chimpanzee behavior in Guam is one of the most famous examples. She observed natural primate social behavior in the wild. Naturalistic observation preserves ecological validity and avoids the artificial conditions of laboratory research. The primary limitations are lack of control over extraneous variables, the possibility of observer effects when subjects know they are being watched, and the inability to draw causal conclusions. A case study is an in-depth investigation of a single individual, small group, event, or situation, typically using multiple methods including interviews, tests, observation, and archival records. Case studies are invaluable for studying rare conditions and phenomena that cannot be created experimentally. The famous cases of Phineas Gage, Patient HM, and Jeannie all provided insights that could not have been obtained any other way. The fundamental weakness of case studies is their inability to generalize. One unusual individual may not represent any broader population. Longitudinal research follows the same individuals over an extended period, sometimes decades, measuring the same variables repeatedly to track change and development over time. The great strength of longitudinal research is that it observes real developmental change within the same people rather than comparing different people at different ages. It can also examine how early characteristics predict later outcomes. The major weaknesses are cost, time, and attrition, the loss of participants over time who may differ systematically from those who remain, biasing the sample. Cross-sectional research measures different age groups at a single point in time and compares them, providing a quick snapshot of age-related differences without waiting years for development to unfold. If you want to compare the memory of 20-year-olds, 40-year-olds, and 60-year-olds, you can test all three groups this year rather than following one group for 40 years. The fundamental limitation is cohort effects. People who are 60 today grew up in a completely different era than those who are 20, with different education, nutrition, technology exposure, and historical experiences that confound age comparisons. The American Psychological Association's ethical guidelines for research protect human participants through several core requirements. Informed consent requires that participants be told the nature of the study and their right to withdraw at any time before they agree to participate. When deception is necessary for validity, as in Milgram's obedience study, full debriefing after the study is required to explain the deception and address any resulting harm. Confidentiality protects participants' data from unauthorized disclosure. Institutional review boards evaluate research protocols before studies begin to ensure ethical standards are met. Confirmation bias is a pervasive cognitive tendency to favor information that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs and to dismiss or ignore information that contradicts them. In research contexts, confirmation bias can affect every stage of the scientific process: hypothesis formulation, study design, data collection, data analysis, and interpretation. Researchers with strong predictions may unconsciously construct studies that favor finding what they expect, analyze data in multiple ways until they find significance, or interpret ambiguous results in the most favorable light. Blinded methods and pre-registration are specifically designed to counteract these biases. Every research method has a ceiling on the strength of the conclusions it can support. Naturalistic observations and surveys can describe and correlate, but cannot establish causation. Case studies can reveal what is possible in extraordinary individuals, but cannot support generalizations. Longitudinal studies can establish temporal precedents, but still face confounders. Only a true experiment with random assignment to conditions and control over the independent variable can support a causal conclusion. Matching the method to the question and being honest about the limits of the method is the core discipline of research design. Research methods are not just technical procedures, they are the instruments of knowledge creation. A beautifully designed experiment answers causal questions, a well-constructed survey answers prevalence questions, a longitudinal study answers developmental questions. Knowing which method answers which question, and what each method cannot answer, is the foundation of critical thinking about psychological science.